Annalies, we just topped off one of our group Q&A calls, and you shared with me, like, very casually, you're like, oh yeah, I used some stuff in week 2 to really, I mean, you had a massive result. So I'd like to share that with people that are watching, because we haven't even worked on your pitch yet. We haven't even like started to pursue TEDx events yet. And already you're finding results in your business. So first off, I'd love you to introduce yourself, let people know who you are, what you do. I know your education background is pretty significant, substantial. So give people some context there too. And then we'll dive into exactly what you found.
Sure. So I'm Annalies Corbin. I'm president and CEO of a nonprofit organization based in the United States in Columbus, Ohio, called the PAST Foundation. We're an educational outreach and engagement. We do tons of work in STEM education, and we work all over the United States and other parts of the world. We train teachers and we work with students. So we're a pretty small organization, but we have a massive sort of footprint. And so let's see, well, the other piece is my background a little bit. So as president and CEO, we are also an organization that feels very strongly about community and culture. And so my actual role at PAST is I'm the chief goddess, because somebody has to. So that would be me. And a lot of that ties back to the fact that we're an anthropologically based organization. And so my background is as an anthropologist. So I've got multiple post-secondary degrees, because why not, right? So a couple master's degrees, 2 PhDs, and at the end of the day, we just believe we can change the world. So.
Right. Awesome. Okay. So to be clear for everybody, Annalies, you're not dumb. You definitely very, very intelligent. Lots of things you probably could have figured out on your own or had figured out on your own previously. So for everyone watching, and 2 PhDs, 2 master's degrees, and I think you've lost track of the number of undergrad degrees. We don't even know whether it's 2 or 3, but certainly you're very educated, very, very smart. You came to me because you were, well, actually, I'll let you explain. What was it that made you decide I should do a TEDx talk?
A couple of different things, really. So part of that is a personal journey, and the other part is a professional journey that sort of came together, right? And so the professional piece of all of this is that, so we, again, a nonprofit organization, we've been around for 20 years. We're a small organization, but a pretty big impact for such a small organizational unit. So for example, we trained over 20,000 teachers, largely the majority of that since 2006, so 15 years, 20,000 teachers, and we've had over 300,000 students impacted through our programs that we've designed and developed. So tiny organization, we're a full-time staff of 13, really, really big imprint. We've worked in 38 states, for example, in the United States, and lots of other countries around the world. So that also means that for us to have been able to do and scale, sort of have that kind of impact, we are a complex organization. And our story, although an awesome and fascinating story, it's really, really hard to distill us down into the elevator pitch, so to speak, right? And so the professional piece of that is, as we were working on and out in the community, 2 years ago, we built an innovation lab. So the nation's and the US first independent R&D, education R&D prototyping facility. And it was a game changer for us as an organization in many, many ways. But one of the things that it did for us, which I would not have been able to predict, which is the part that sort of led me to Ryan, is that prior to us putting a stake in the ground and actually having this big thing, right, it becomes this almost an albatross, right? You know, you have this thing now, whereas before I could deploy teams all over the world. We did amazing things. It was awesome. We had lots of great fun, really great success with that. But the minute you put a stake in the ground, you have to have a very different relationship with your community. And so in this case, we're in Columbus, Ohio, a very dynamic city, big urban area, lots and lots of companies, corporations, partners, you name it, right? Nobody here knew who we were, and yet we've been here for 20 years. And I used to say we are Columbus's best kept secret. And in many ways, in the educational landscape, certainly with what was going on here, we were kind of the quiet elephant in the room. We were behind the scenes doing a lot of the work that was happening, and yet nobody knew we were here because we had zero visibility. And on some levels, that was awesome. I didn't get in the middle of all of the local politics, state, local, regional, you name it. And again, we're a big place with lots of players. We have many global company headquarters right here in Columbus, even though lots of folks don't realize that. And so the politics of this place can be daunting, right? If you don't understand the landscape. But the minute we put a stake in the ground, I needed everybody here to know who we were.
Mm.
And no one knew. And I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, not only do we need to figure out how to tell our story, but we need to be able to distill the body of our work down. And we also need to be able to scale beyond this one place, right? If we're not careful, this thing that we built would eclipse all the other great work that we're doing, and that was never the intent. So I need to be able to tell a different story to potential funders, to potential industry partners, and so on. And then the other thing is that as we grew and the work that we were doing became more and more impactful in that space, a decision was made that it's really critically important to get me as an individual, as the president and CEO, but also the founder of this organization, in front of a different global audience. And that is an audience that allows us to impact policy and to impact, sort of the progression of the way people think about the landscape of education. And so that combination of factors said, okay, a great way to do that would be to land a really big TED-like event, whether it ultimately ended up being TED or not. But the reality of it was, well, then let's go big or go home. And so, but I can't do that on my own.
Right. Before we get into the really cool, because we haven't even written a pitch or any of that stuff yet.
We're not that far.
Through, like, okay, try this exercise. Let's see what we find, right? So and this is like a really cool case study showing how you were able to take this and go, wait a second, we can use this over here. What made you decide to work with me?
I had been so this is not a new idea. So about 2 years ago, 18 months ago, at the board level, really having conversations about how do we long-term transition me out of my role as president and CEO. And in the nonprofit world, the other piece to keep in mind is I'm a founder. So I started this organization, and founders are a unique cohort. We just are, right? Because we tended to have built from nothing. We're absolute passionate. We have wicked control over the things that we do, which can be a detriment both to yourself and to everybody around you. That's the reality of it, right? And so oftentimes it gets really difficult to move founders on. But I made a decision a long time ago that we are not going to suffer in this organization from founder rot. But I'm relatively young and I got a lot left to do. But I love this organization. And so one of the things that we talked about is figuring out where the point in time is where we really transition me to being the ambassador of the organization, that I can continue the work that I'm doing, but I am now almost emeritus status, and I'm out there evangelizing everything that past is and filtering and bringing new clients and new work into us. But I have to be able to do that from a completely sort of different perspective that's no longer operational. And so that was a piece of it as well.
Cool. So why did you shoot, like, why Ryan as opposed to
Oh yeah, so sorry, I lost track of the question. So why Ryan? So through that piece, that decision that had been made, then so we started doing a lot of research around sort of what's going on and how do you go about this. And so a couple of things. So we launched a podcast to sort of start gauging a lot of things, recognizing, at some point you're going to need to be able to do a book, and that's not about your anthropological stuff, though. It's really about the life and blood of past. And oh, by the way, we need a speaking coach. And about a year ago, I was involved actually in a TED-like event. We ultimately decided not to license it. So I was asked to actually start a program at the University of Alaska, Anchorage, that ultimately we called Seawolf Stories. And so actually I think it's all online now, but so I went through and I didn't know anything about doing this. And I interviewed some speaking coaches to help us actually launch this event. And so did a bunch of research, identified 5 or 6, narrowed it down to 2. An amazing woman actually helped us do that. And so I got to watch it from that backside, the flip side of it. But the other thing that I recognized from the folks that I was working with through that is I needed somebody who had experience on more of an international lens, right? And so I did research. I stumbled across Ryan. I signed up for your newsletter a long time ago, about a year ago, and started getting information. So I had the opportunity to sort of watch. And then I signed up for, one of your free webinars and a few things like that, right? And so I just very slowly started. And then I also was trolling, quite frankly, folks who had participated. And I was also then asking folks that were doing a lot of big speaking, not necessarily for TED, but just industry folks that were shifting into the speaker circuit from their full-time work, and having lots and lots of conversations about what is it that I need in a coach. And at the end of the day, the thing that I needed was somebody with an awful lot of energy, somebody with the time and the wherewithal who had really thought about the world very differently. And I found you.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I know, so this is cool. We've hinted at this, right? And I love when sometimes I tell people that this process of crafting a great message, the reason we don't just pitch right away, and the reason I don't just, whether you work with me or not, you should not just jump into pitching, is because this is a resource that will be online for a long time. And this is not just your TEDx talk, right? This is the value that you bring to the world, the way that you are changing the world, and that transcends one message. But you shared a really cool thing about it was like a workshop or like a weekend kind of thing that you do. Can you share that story with people so they get a sense of, this is like week 2, right? Was the echo test. Tell us what you've done with this thing last year, what your results were with changing the way that you were communicating with people that were doing this work.
Yeah, so one of the things when you and I first talked was I very much wanted whatever was going to happen in the work that we did together to have a direct impact back into the business past. So I came into it thinking about everything that we've done together. How can I use this another way? So that's just part of my mindset, right?
Yeah, that was awesome.
And we had that conversation up front. So it's like, okay, there's going to be lots of possibilities. So I'm going to be really, really thinking about and watching and using. And so in week 2, we did an echo test. And one of the things that Past Foundation does is we hold a monthly Maker Mania for families in our community. And basically what that is it's an opportunity for you to come into the Innovation Lab. We have all this stuff, 3D printers, laser cutters. I mean, it's a full-on maker and fabrication space, right? It's part of the work that we do, but that's not openly available all over the place to families. And so we do this Maker Mania event. It's a lot of fun. All these families and little kids would come in, right? And so, on average, we probably have 130 or so folks that will sign up, come to this event, spend a couple hours with us, and then off they go home and whatnot. The most recent one, though, that I knew was coming up was for our January. And in every January, we do our summer program launch. And that's a really big deal because we strive for 1,000 kids a summer to sign up for STEM summer camps, and families all over looking for, what am I going to do with my kiddos, right? So January, you launch these. And we decided a couple of years ago to tie it to one of our Maker Mania events. And we've done it, and it's been great, and same thing, we push it out, the 130 people will come, we offer a discount code, those types of things. But it's a lot of staff time. We do it on a Saturday. It's a lot of prep. You got to build all the stuff out. So as we were doing the echo testing, one of the things that I thought about was, hey, I think I know what this event is, but maybe that's not what people really get out of it. When we put all of our messaging out and we advertise it in social media, pretty much largely, almost exclusively newsletter, things like that. So using the echo test that we did in your course, we literally echo tested the statements that were going in the social media blasting and the social media ads, and the information we got back helped us recraft those ads prior to us spending money and posting them. And we also rewrote SEO. which was a big deal, right? And the impact of that was where we typically will have like 130 people maybe sign up. We had 300, almost 300 people pre-sign up. And whereas last year, maybe from the 130 people that showed up, we might sign up $2,500, let's say, worth of summer camps. Instead, we are able to be able to capture 25,000. And so that's a pretty big difference in terms of sort of the impact
Yeah.
and what we,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, so you're able to make some switches like that by doing these types of things.
Right.
Yeah.
So which is
Cool.
so it's interesting to, like, not only do you have more than double the number of people show up, but you were getting, that's 5 times more revenue per person as
Well,
well.
and keep in mind the other thing too is, so some of that was people who signed up while they were there. But the other thing is that the discount code, because the way we structured it out, so there was a benefit to signing up on site, right? You could also take that off and share it with a friend. It will work for 48 hours.
Yeah.
Right. So now you also then have
Yeah.
other folks sharing. So it was a
Yeah.
boost to the local sign up on site, but it was also the sort of living sign up.
Right. That's really cool as well, because, for your TEDx talk, when we get to that point, what you want, of course, is not just someone watching your talk and going, yeah, I like that. Right. I'm engaging, but they have a clear way of sharing that with their friends. Right. Which is the nature of your message spreading. That's awesome. You mentioned something to me as well that, it's not just about the money. Right. Share that with people, because there's a lot of people that are watching this that are more purpose driven as well. And they like the money because the money allows them to do more of what they are really trying to do. So what is the 25,000, the 10X more revenue? What does that really mean for you in terms of the impact that you're able to have with your
Well, I mean, it has impact a couple of different places. The first and foremost is, like, you have to be able to make, in the nonprofit world, right? Largely, we scrape together keeping the lights on. It's the nature of the beast, right? And so you have to be able to make some strategic exchanges and think about what you're doing, right? And so having that many people come in means it's possible for us to do it again. Right. It's very easy to justify the cost of the opportunity back to the community. And what we've heard repeatedly, and it's tough, right? You have to grow it. So the first few times you may have a few dozen people show up, and then the next time, 24 people show up, and so on and so forth. But the reality about what it does is it brings more people in the door. And yes, there's a monetary benefit of that, but more importantly, it socializes the work that you're doing, right? And that socialization of the work that you're doing brings tens of thousands more in your door.
Yeah.
Not just dollars, but people.
Those 300,
and now
to their friends.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that impact, right? It's that bigger, broader impact into the community. And for us, every kid that comes through summer camp and we're avoiding, some of the summer slide or whatever, or we're inspiring a kid who never knew they could be an entomologist because they thought they were afraid of bugs, and suddenly they leave and they can't wait to tell you about every butterfly and grasshopper they see, right? Those are huge wins.
Yeah.
For us, it's far more social.
Cool, because number one, you were creative and insightful enough to see, this isn't just about a TEDx talk. I can use the same thing everywhere else, which is awesome. I'm going to show this to people that are in the program as well, so they can learn from this example, because I think your insight was really cool. And as well, even people outside, like, this is not just about a TEDx talk. Frankly, this is about everything that you do, because your whole, for most people, like, their whole job is engaging with their audience, helping them, either sharing in terms of expertise or the vision for their nonprofit or some kind of cause or some kind of cultural change they're trying to enact. And this is really cool. Yeah, this is awesome. Anything else you want to say before we wrap?
Only that I do think it was really important that when we first had that early conversation, that we talked about all the ancillary benefits that could come, right? And so I shared with you what I needed, and you shared with me what was possible. And I think that is a key thing, because I have kept that, especially if I've bumped, life happens, right? And I've bump into a constraint that has made it, really hard for me to get through this particular piece, or, hey, this week's harder than the week before for a variety of different reasons. The reality of it is that I'm getting more out of this than just a TED Talk. And because I'm getting more out of it than that, it makes it that much easier to keep pushing through. I'm excited about the TED Talks. I'm terrified about the TED Talk, but I'm excited about it too. But the reality of it is it's bigger than just me.
That's true. Yeah.
Me.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah. Thanks, Annalies. Really appreciate your insight as well as sharing that win with me today, which is awesome. And I'll leave a link below the video. I don't know where I'm going to post this, maybe YouTube or something. I'll leave the link below in the video for you guys to book a call with me. Again, of course, on the call, one of the things that really helps me help you is if we have a really open and honest conversation about what your actual goals are, so that we can make sure that you have a strategy that gets you the whole way. And again, we kind of begin with the end in mind, right? And really get clear on what you're after. And we can make sure that there's a strategy and a topic that solves as many of those as possible. So,
right.
Thanks again. And I'll see you next week.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye.